Hello, Community Bible Church. I hope you're all doing well. For anyone watching this video who does not know me, my name is Seth Gheen, and I'm the Associate Pastor of Discipleship here at CBC. Well, in the following video clips, we have something really special for you. A little while ago, myself and all the other pastors, we sat down and we brainstormed together what are ways that we can reach out to and help you all, the church body, during this time of the coronavirus lockdown. And one of the ideas that we came up with was to address not just the spiritual, but also try to speak to the mental, the physical, the emotional difficulties that some are facing during this time of imposed social isolation. Now, fortunately for us, we're blessed to have a member of our church who is just the right person to have this kind of conversation with. Many of you probably know Dr. Jim Johnson. Perhaps you've seen him around church back when we used to meet together, him and his wife Cheryl. Dr. Johnson is a board-certified Christian counselor. He is a licensed and ordained pastor, and he also holds a PhD in marriage and family. He was kind enough to share some of his time with us, and what you're going to see are shorter clips of a longer conversation between Dr. Johnson and myself about these very issues. We've broken those up into more bite-sized clips. When you look at the title, you're going to see which specific questions we're talking about. We hope that you enjoy, that these are beneficial to you. Well, another major theme that has come up with, as I said at the beginning, we've had a lot of emails, phone calls, texts. All the pastors here have, with our different circles and people that we're in contact with. And a big one that keeps coming up is just loss. And I don't mean really loss of life. I hesitate to say that nobody's known someone who has, that nobody hasn't known anybody who has died. I don't know if that's true or not, but I know that for me and for a lot of others, it's not that I know anybody who's died from coronavirus. It's more loss of, like for graduating seniors, loss of a graduation ceremony they might have looked forward to for a long time. Loss of time with grandkids, loss of a daily routine. And there's even, loss of maybe just health overall. I mean, we got sick. It wasn't coronavirus, but it's just stuff going around. And that has an effect on us. For those struggling with loss in whatever form, what are some of the positive and, let's start with the negative. It's more interesting. What are some of the negative effects that loss can have? What happens if you deal with it in an unhealthy way?
Well, as somebody who's involved in the field of counseling and psychology, I know that there are stages that you go through. Those stages can be typified. They were first discovered by somebody by the name of Elizabeth Kubler-Ross. It's something that we've all heard about, I think, or maybe had some exposure. And it was in the context of dying. Somebody that would go through a death in a family or a friend, they would experience 5 specific things. Those have been processed and worked through it. They basically come into these 5 categories. The first one is denial. It's not happening, it's not happening. Everything's good, we're all fine. That's one of the first stages we go through. The second stage is we jump in and try to fix it. We make vows. I'm gonna change this, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna figure this out, the third stage that we go through is anger. I'm so mad, I'm so irritated, I can't go on.
Yeah.
The fourth stage is depression. So in those first 4 stages, when we're dealing with a death, we all go through the 5 stages. These first 4, all 5 are actually there. What we discovered was in loss, when somebody would lose their arm in a farming accident, go through all of these 5 stages. When someone would lose a job, we go through all 5 stages. When somebody loses their health, diagnosis of some bad disease, all 5 of these stages are there. Every single time. And then we began to do experiments with children. Now, I'm sure that they weren't abusive or anything like that, but we discovered that when a little boy loses his fire truck, he will go through in a little boy sort of way, denial and vows and anger and depression on a way to acceptance. like to call this the valley of the shadow of death. If we look at Psalm 23, it talks about, yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death. That shadow is the shadow of loss. Whatever it is, the death of I lost my arm, I lost my legs. My nephew right now is in the hospital. He's lost his lower colon. He's had to go through a colonectomy, I think it's called, and he's getting in a bag that will be attached to his side. Well, the different emotions that he goes through as he struggles with all that are these exact same 5 things. So we go through the valley of the shadow of death. We go through the shadow. And where are we headed? The last one is acceptance. We get to that sense of acceptance. There's a really good pastor I know that gave some perspectives on this place of acceptance, this walking with my shepherd. He was teaching out of the book of Ecclesiastes. He had 4 points. The 4 points were, first of all, you're just not that important. The second point that he had was, not only are you not that important and your life is but a vapor like smoke, the second point was, live each day to the fullest. His third point, and I think you know who that pastor was at this point, his third point was, you're not in control. And his fourth point is, life's a mystery.
Yeah.
And that was the material that you were teaching just a couple Sundays ago, and I thought it was really, really good.
Thanks.
Maybe not in the same words that you used, but
Yeah.
it certainly impacted me. And when we go through that acceptance, we go through this process of realizing life is short, live each day, I'm not in control, life's a mystery, but God is. So we go through these kinds of times. It's an opportunity for us to realize the presence of God. It's an amazing time. I don't like it. It's hard. But in the midst of it, I have the time to shut off the noise and realize, thou art with me. Your rod and your staff comfort me. I think that's really cool.
So for somebody who has experienced loss, again, in whatever form, and there is a lot of loss, and I don't want to minimize like I said, the graduating seniors who I look forward to something that may not happen, or there's, people have had canceled vacations and all types of stuff.
Yeah.
Your advice would be, hey, recognize you're probably somewhere in those first 4 steps.
Yeah.
And that's okay.
Yeah.
You're just going to work your way through them, but realize that God is with you and depend on Him until eventually you're going to rise at that acceptance stage.
Yeah, you're going to move towards letting God be God. Missing out on a graduating class of seniors, that's tough. I get that. Graduating from college, or a lot of weddings have been canceled.
Yep.
Or I think of some of the stories we hear of people not being able to attend funerals.
Yep.
There are some heartbreaking stories out there. So to your point, not to minimize that, but to realize no matter what it is, we're all going to go through these stages, and we need to move into the presence of God.
Let's talk about loss of routine.
Okay.
I think that's something that every single person, I have a hard time thinking of a single exception to that, is dealing with. Even if you're still working, if you're a medical person, you just went from normal work to just crazy, hectic overload with patients.
Yeah.
So loss of routine, that's something else that we can minimize. Oh, it's not a big deal, but it actually is. I was talking to a friend just a little while ago, and she was saying that, hey, this is really affecting me.
Yeah.
I'm trying to do everything through Zoom all of a sudden, and I don't like that, and all of a sudden I can't just go out and meet my friends at the coffee shop, that type of thing.
Yeah.
What happens when our routines are massively disrupted?
Yeah.
What kind of effect will that have on us?
Well, it's horrible. We all love to be comfortable. There's a statement that's made in the Purpose-Driven Life that God is not so much concerned with your comfort as He is your character. But the fact of the matter is, when I'm out of my comfort zone, and I'm an obsessive-compulsive perfectionist, I'm highly focused, I don't like change in my life. I'll go to the same restaurant for 40 years because I don't like change at all. That's the hard part. And what your friend is saying is, when we're going through those life changes, getting out of that comfort zone, That's not easy to do. And we don't want to throw like cheap phrases, you know. We make an awful lot of religious phrases. I will just trust Jesus, he'll make it all fine.
Or it's just, I hear a lot, it's not that big a deal.
Yeah.
And I've learned with my kids, well, my wife helped me understand, like, it is a big deal to them. And you saying it isn't
Yeah.
is
It's
making
not
everything
helping.
worse.
Yeah. Now we're all angry, depressed.
Now they're
bowels
angry,
again.
and then I'm angrier. It's like, just let it be a big deal.
There
So
you
it is a
go.
big deal. Anyway,
Absolutely.
go on with what you were saying.
No, it is. It is a big deal, as you say. I don't like it when somebody changes the amount that I have to pay at the gas pump. I don't like it when they change my gas pump.
Yeah.
You know, and maybe that's my own disorder thinking. But the point of it is, when I lose my job, some of the most terrifying times of a person's life is you lose your job, or you lose, the routine is broken.
Right.
You feel really unstable. One of the things that we know about people who do a lot of sales and travel, their routine is broken. They get on an airplane, they fly someplace else. They're very vulnerable you know, when they're traveling because that routine has been broken. So one of the things about the brain that we need to understand, just some of the pieces of it, is that if you can imagine in our brain, maybe make it simple, we calcify, so to speak. So we become, as we grow older, I'm obviously a little older than you so that I can speak to this issue, but one of my biggest fears is I don't want to become more rigid.
Yeah.
You know, I look at what happened with the run on toilet paper, and then there was this run on hamburger and canned ham, and you know,
The basic necessities of American life.
oh yeah, toilet paper and canned ham.
There
I
you
know
go.
it. I can't live without it.
Where's my Spam?
I know. So I was looking at all of this going on, and I've been in the military. I've been overseas. Lots of changes happened. I'm more used to it, maybe. But for some, there's not a lot of change in our lives. So when it does happen, it gets really scary. And I believe that this COVID virus, we have seen that sense of fear, a sense of change, and it gives us a little bit of a taste of what those who go through the tribulation will feel. I've been thinking about this a lot. There are those who will not be, as Chuck was talking about, the apostolos, the gathering, the snatching away, those that will not be a part of the rapture. And I can't even imagine, if you think about what we have gone through in this little blip on the radar, what the world will go through. So when I think about change, part of what helps me is to realize I've got it pretty good.
Yeah.
I've got my health. I live in Nebraska. We got cornfields and hamburger running around all over the place.
We'll
And
never run out.
yeah, it doesn't look like we'll run out. You can always use corn as toilet paper. I mean, we did on the farm. So when you think about the change that we go through, sometimes we lighten up.
Right.
You need to be thankful that this will be over. This is not it's not an invasion by a military government. This is not a crisis of food. This is a medical emergency. It has some financial connections, but God is still God, and I believe that we as Americans will recover, and we need to work through that.
So essentially, keep it in proper perspective.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you for watching this video. We trust that it was beneficial to you. If you have future topics or questions that you would like us to address with Dr. J, then you can email them to this email. You should see it right below my finger. We'll be happy to take a look at those and see if we can cover them in future conversations. Thank you.